Hi there everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for joining me today and welcome to another episode of Chaos Roundup for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. So we've had two events come about this week, both at the same time, both happen on Wednesday, and they are Pandemonium's Chaos as well as the New Dimensions End Entropy tier, which is tier 8. So if you guys want to see how I cleared these events, maybe some alternative tactics, maybe some alternative characters that you may want to use because you might not have the same characters as me, then stay tuned and keep on watching. Before we get into the Chaos Clears, I'd like to invite you guys to have a look at my social media pages. So that includes my Twitter, my Discord, my Twitch channel. I actually have something very cool planned for next Friday. As many of you know, both Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing come out next Friday, and both of these games are games that I'm very excited for. So I thought to myself, well, I can't decide which one of them I want to stream, so I thought, well, why not stream them both simultaneously? And I've got a new format with my streaming that allows the viewer, so you guys, to vote on which game you want to see being played at any given time, because both games appear on the screen, so you can see which way that you want the stream to go, and it's actually dictated by you guys. So I'd really like it if you guys would come and join me next weekend, next Friday, and come and join in with some fun on that front. Not only that, but I'd like to invite you guys to have a look at my Patreon page as well, because I've been doing a lot of work on trying to get Patreon up and running again since my previous departure and subsequent return, obviously. And as I've stated on my Patreon page, I will shout out a single random patron every video, and today that patron is going to be I Give Up, which, thank you very much for your support. Obviously, if you want to have any of the bespoke title cards as you've seen previously, then you'll need to go into some of the other tiers, but equally, even just a single $1 per month support is very, very valued, so thank you very much for that. And obviously, don't forget to check out all of the other content creators when it comes to Dissidia Opera Omnia. Every single one of them works very hard, as much as I do, so they appreciate your likes and subscribes just as much as me. So first up here, we have Pandemonium's Chaos event. Now, I honestly take the very, very different approach to this particular Chaos because I'm able to, and this particular team composition comprises of a lot of very old characters actually at this point. Characters that you'd think maybe weren't doing so well, but honestly 90% of people are using Y'shtola for this clear because she's the character that a lot of people have got. She's super synergy, she's got delay mechanics on her, she's got pretty much everything you need for this fight. And as I said in my previous video that sort of dictated what was going to be happening this week, there are a lot of characters that you can actually use for this particular Chaos. But before I go into some alternatives, I'll explain what I've done here. I've taken Cloud, Tifa and Y'shtola and made it so that Pandemonium never ever gets a turn at all. And I've gotten 999,999 score for this. It's, you know, a very easy way to do this, to be honest, and it's using characters that a lot of people have got, and honestly you could interchange some of these into other characters. So for example, you could take Aranea in the place of either Tifa or Cloud. Y'shtola is pretty much a guarantee, like she's a dead cert. You do kind of need her to do this because she has the ability to recover stone uses. She's got Pulse of Life, which is granting loads of bravery to the other two. You've got a lot of, you know, the delay comes most frequently from her. And in all fairness, Cloud doesn't actually do any delaying at all. What he does bring is paralysis. So like I said, you could change some of these characters around. You could use Aranea in place of either Tifa or Cloud. You could use Setzer in place of either Tifa or Cloud. You could use Kam'lanaut even in place of Cloud. It would be a little bit slower with Kam'lanaut because he has to alternate between the paralysis uses. And you're not doing an HP attack the next turn, which is a little bit of a pain. But equally, Cloud is a character that many people have got. They either got him when he first came out, they got him the second time he came out, they exchanged their EX tokens for him. He's a very popular character. Now, he was the first character to get an EX realization and an EX altogether, so quite honestly, if people have been playing for a long time, there are going to be a large percentage of players that have access to Cloud. So I thought, well, why not use him? I was actually inspired by a run that was posted a long while ago from the JP version of this run, and I thought, well, do you know what, I'll try it for myself. Aranea does the delay thing much better than Cloud. She does a lot more damage than him, but quite honestly, I've got a little bit sick of people sitting there going, oh, you're using Aranea. It's like, well, yes, I've decided I'm not going to use her, but what I did do is use her as a friend unit, because once you've gotten past a certain threshold and some of your skill uses start to run out, then you're going to want someone to be able to keep that momentum going, and nobody does that better than Aranea. So what I'd managed to do was use Aranea to extend the damage so that you were making sure you were dealing loads, and then sort of not using her and the summon at the same time like a lot of people do. I was trying to make sure I got as much delay as physically possible. I managed to make it so that Pandemonium got his first turn off. You know, I won't say he got no turns at all. He did get a turn off, but it was the turn before he summoned his tornadoes and started doing the HP damage, things like that. I just didn't have to deal with any of the mechanics for this kind of thing pretty much at all. Now, in terms of characters that you could use alternatively, I mean, I've mentioned a bunch of characters you could use alternatively if you wanted to use the delay route of things or the paralysis route for things. So that's, I mean, I didn't mention Garland there, but he's another choice that you could have. But if you wanted to do this properly, of sorts, then what you're going to want to take is somebody with a decent amount of HP regen, because once those tornadoes go up, you're going to be draining health every turn, and you're not going to like it. So basically, you want anyone with an HP regen, so somebody like Penelo, or people who can heal themselves. So Zac, Rosa, Yuri, characters like that will do very well. Barsh is actually quite useful for this particular event. You've got a lot of, to be honest, this isn't the most difficult of Chaos missions, as long as you kind of know what you need to take in before you take it. So there's a lot of characters that you can use, as long as they've got some level of healing. Ignis would be another good shout. You've got, as I said, Aranea is going to be really strong here because she's strong in everything that doesn't outright resist her. Edge will obviously be good because of the super synergy. Penelo, if you can take Y'shtola and Penelo, then you're pretty much set. Y'shtola, Penelo, and a damage dealer. Y'shtola is probably the most important character to this particular run, and if you don't have access to Y'shtola, then Penelo and Zac will probably do you okay, because Zac will be able to ward any of Pandemonium's attacks to himself, and Penelo will keep everyone's HP up during the tornado phase, so you want to be able to keep it up as much as possible. But if you have Y'shtola, then honestly this is going to be a very easy fight for you. Setzer is another one that, as I mentioned earlier, that can be really good because he has the delay mechanics. He can battery everybody else. He's got little bits of auras and making sure that everyone's max bravery is high, his damage is high. He'll do very, very well, but quite honestly, I mean, if you want to make this easy for yourself, and I always try to take the easiest route when it comes to clearing these most difficult content, things like that, because I think that why would I make things harder for myself when I don't need to? But if you've got access to these characters, the reason I chose Tifa, Cloud, and Y'shtola is because they're characters that a large number of players have access to, and there's alternatives to them that have such delay mechanics and things like that. Quistis is probably a bit too weak at this point for her to do anything, so I wouldn't take her necessarily, but there's a lot of options available to you when it comes to clearing this particular fight. Now, Dimensions End Entropy 8, I had a lot of fun with. Like, I've had more fun with this Dimensions End mission than I've had with a lot of them, and that's in part because I love every single member of my party that I've put in for it. I could have gone with, Onion Knight or somebody like that, anyone with Imperil Enchant. Lulu, I don't actually have Lulu, believe me, I've tried, and I am not spending any more resources on her because she's evil, and I have 5 JekTX to show for it, so I won't be going any further in for Lulu. But I actually love using Edge. I think he's such a fun character to play with. Like, outright dodging enemy attacks is such good fun. But the one thing that Edge is missing from his kit is Thunder Imperil. He actually can't do it, despite the fact that he has Thunder in pretty much his entire kit, including his regular HP attack pluses. He's just got so much Thunder, but he doesn't have any access to Thunder Imperil, so I thought, what character could I pair up with him that would work? And then I thought of Krile. Now, Krile is a fantastically fun character to use, despite the fact that she doesn't have, like, the most powerful attacks or anything like that, but then I thought, hold on, Edge has attack and max bravery auras, why not put them together? Because then you've got the weakness damage buff from Krile, which makes sense because the whole point of this entire fight is Enchant Imperil, and she has Imperil on top of it, and she has the whole Brave Battery thing covered. Between Yuri and Kryle's bravery gens, it's actually hilarious how much bravery you get without even taking your turn. It's quite funny, and I'll get to Yuri in a second. But honestly, Krile and Edge together, you just try it. It's so much fun. They work beautifully together, despite the fact that their max bravery isn't as high as some, so like your Araneas and things like that. I loved using this pairing, and it was so much fun. The main thing with this particular fight is you want to time your smoke screens and blitz mirages for the right points in the fight. So for the example, with the Humbarbas in the first wave, you want to make sure that you're dodging their nasty HP attacks, because they're just gonna wipe you out, because you don't have the most health in the world, and they have attacks that are very heavily delaying, so their Humbarba breath, you want to kind of dodge that if you think that that's coming. The reason that I brought Yuri with me is because his auras and his, like, the Brave Overflow and his damage and gravity-based attacks, I mean, anyone who's been watching me since I've come back knows how much I love using Yuri, and he provides the healing that Krile can't as well, so they kind of... The reason I love using Yuri so much is because he's a damage dealer that just fills the support role at the same time, but he kind of fills in the gaps that certain other characters have. So these three together work absolutely beautifully. The only problem with this team is that it does take a little while to ramp up. You need to have that holy resist down for Yuri to be realistically doing a lot of damage. So if you're using Yuri, bear in mind that a lot of the enemies in this fight resist ranged, and Crystal Power is a ranged attack. So use Rella Crystal to start Yuri off, because you'll deal a lot more damage that way until you've got that holy resist down, at which point Crystal Power all the live long day. If you're doing it to like Brave Shave and they've got a large amount of bravery that you don't want them to have, then that's fine. But equally you have to be careful, because otherwise you're just going to be wasting skill uses. But equally you want to be using to get to Clavashion's sword as quickly as possible, and because every wave has multiple enemies in it, that AoE 100% damage is absolutely invaluable. And in fact, all three of these party members have AoE based EX attacks, and that's extremely helpful. If you're using Edge, I would recommend trying to save at least 2 smoke screens for the final wave, and using him a bit more sparingly in the opening sections. You want to make sure you get to Blitz Mirage the first time as quickly as possible, so that the recast rate is a little bit faster. So use Shock and things like that to get there as quickly as you can. But in the final wave, you want to use a smoke screen to kind of extend the length of time before you want to summon, so you can deal as much damage as you can. Bear in mind that smoke screen also batteries, it also locks, it does lots of little things that will help you greatly. But equally, the Mirage buff saves me in this fight so many times, and whenever you can't use that, then Kryle's Earth Crystal buff, where you're just gaining bravery, saves you from getting broken as well, so you have a lot of the defenses covered before you actually have to do anything. Now the second wave is a little bit more awkward, but hopefully you've got the ball rolling already, because Quick Dual Cast goes off very frequently anyway, so you don't have to worry quite so much. You can make sure you've got access to the Thunder Resist down and the Holy Resist down. So what I've tried to do is, if I know that the enemy's very nearly dead already, I tried to kind of hold back using either Krile or Yuri's EX until the next wave, because I just want to make sure that those resist downs are straight, or the Imperils are there straight away from the beginning of the fight, because you'll find that there's a much more streamlined, sort of, easy-going way with it, as opposed to you having to build back up to get the EX before you can actually start doing damage. But basically, it was just a very balanced team, and it used a character that a lot of people aren't really using these days in Krile, because she complements Edge just that well that they just gel together perfectly. Your defenses are pretty much perfect. I mean, I got broken a fair amount in the first wave of the fight, but that's because I was in the kind of the build-up phase, and in all honesty, I probably could have dodged them if I'd planned a bit better, but I was trying to make sure I kept the turn count down as much as I could. And then the third wave is honestly really easy. You don't have to worry too much about the third wave, because it's an Ochu. As long as, at least if you're using Edge, you don't have to worry too much about it, because you're going to dodge all of its debuff attacks. You're going to pretty much dodge everything that it does. And it summons its little sort of seeds, and they're a little bit annoying, but if you've got Mirage up, you haven't got to worry about it. Or if you haven't got Mirage up, you can use a smoke screen to kind of ward that away. I used 1 smoke screen per wave, and that left me 2 for the final wave, so that I could just push that little bit harder. And then the second wave, The second wave is annoying because the dragon does just HP attack you out of nowhere, and it will do a lot of damage if you're not careful. And then the kraken will do delay like there's no tomorrow. I tried to make it so that I would dodge things whenever I knew that delay was coming, or the AoE brave HP attacks. I would try and make sure that they just wouldn't hit me, and that's why I kept 2 smoke screens for that wave, because this is the wave that will just come out of nowhere and kill you if you're not careful using this team. And then equally, again, making sure that I had quick dual cast and Clavashion's sword ready so that their imperils were up straight away and that kept that momentum going the whole time. And then eventually, like, it's just a summon phase at that point. You're just delaying it to make sure that they can't hit you. You don't care what they do. You're just ignoring the bosses almost entirely. And then you get the summon, do as much AoE damage as possible, try to get it so, I mean, try and time it if you're going to use Krile, where your quick dual cast goes up just before you summon, so that you're getting that much more bravery during the summon, and that's really good. And if you can get a Clavashion's sword in there during the summon for 100% AoE damage, then it just does absolute wonders. In terms of alternative characters, honestly the most common character that you'll find when it comes to this particular fight will be Lulu, and that's because the fight is based around Enchant and Imperil and no one has it quite as readily available as Lulu does. You'll be able to keep the Fire Imperil and the Fire Enchant up pretty much indefinitely throughout the entire thing, and because you've got that, you only really have to worry about keeping yourself defended, so people are going to use Penelo quite a lot to make sure your bravery is up at the right times. Honestly, this is probably the best DE tier to use Penelo on, because the later ones you'll have other characters you can use. You could either save Penelo for the next one. I actually don't know when I'm going to use Penelo, because I didn't use it for this one, and I actually saved Rosa for the next one, so I don't know when I'm going to use Penelo, but I'm sure I'll find somewhere to use her. But she will definitely keep your bravery up, she'll keep your stats up, she'll make sure that your speed is up as well, because honestly, as long as you can just keep hammering them with these massive attacks, the only things you have to really worry about are like the Humbarba's mass delay. Their needle shot attack is also pretty nasty, so if you can make sure you take less damage for that and you can get healing to kind of boost yourself back up. Yuri is a common one, and like I said with my own clear, Yuri does take a little while to ramp up, but once he gets going, he hits like an absolute bus, and he's got the regens, and he does so much work. Aiko is a character that a few people use as well, because she does have the Holy Resist down. Yuri and Aiko together would work really well, because then you've got 2 sources of Holy Imperil, which is really, really useful. Zac is fine if you got an Enchant and Imperil to go with it, but I used Zac in the last mission, so obviously I didn't have a tank readily available for this. You can use Onion Knight. Onion Knight is really, really strong for having, again, Enchant Imperil, and he's got decent AoE damage from his Blizzard combo and his Meteorite attack, and he can also just switch up straight into single target damage by going into Ninja mode and using Blade Torrent instead. And then when you've got the right timing for it, you can use his Crystal 65 ability to make it so that everyone is Blizzard Enchanted, and then you've got like bursts of Lulu style damage, and that can work really well as well. If you've got Lulu, then Jecht would be really good, because he's obviously fire, like he's fire, he does the fiery thing and he just does a lot of damage as well. Kam'lanaut and Shantotto, if you have them both, they can work really well. I personally wouldn't recommend purpling Kam'lanaut, because he's not as good as some characters, but at the end of the day, if it gets the dimensions and done, then do what you need to do it. Because Kam'lanaut will work if you've got ice. Kam'lanaut and Onion Knight would work as well, because you've got the Ice Imperil from Onion Knight, and Kam'lanaut can take advantage of it. So basically, as long as you've got methods of Enchant and Imperil and methods of dealing damage on a large scale from those characters and a way to keep your bravery up, then you'll be fine. Healing is obviously very nice as well, because you will take damage at some point during the fight. But there are banners that are live even right now that have, Imperil-based characters on it. The best character for this is Lulu. So if you're desperate for an Imperil enchant, then Lulu will be your best bet for it. But I warn you that Lulu will fall off very quickly, and this is probably the best use for her. You probably won't use her very much after this particular fight. But equally, if you've got Onion Knight, if you've got Yuri, if you've got pretty much anyone that does Imperil enchant, then you're pretty set. You've got, other characters. You could use Rosa. Rosa will keep the health up. She's got the big auras. She's still just a great character to have. But equally, you want to make sure you've got an Imperil or Enchanter with her, because a lot of her attacks are ranged, and a lot of the enemies resist ranged. So you do want to bear that in mind if you plan to use Rosa. But as I said, as long as you've got a support character that has access to healing and brave recovery, as long as you've got some sort of way of recovering or, you know, making sure that the enemies don't just insta-kill you. So a tank, and in my case, I actually used Edge as my tank. Edge is fantastic for this, but only realistically if you have a Thunder Imperil character to go with him. So I used Krile, but Shantotto would work here as well. And if you were to take Shantotto and Edge, then you'd probably want to take a different support character along with you as well, so Pinello, for example. And then you just want to make sure you're dealing an absolute ton of damage so that it doesn't take too long to kill the enemies, because that can be a bit of a problem. So that's going to be it for this week's Chaos Roundup. Hopefully the strategies that I've given you that help me will also help you, and also I've tried to give as many different alternatives and suggestions as I could for any different team compositions that you might want to use. If you've used a different sort of team to anything that I've used here, then feel free to let me know in the comments below, or let everybody else know so that they can follow your example. And obviously don't forget to check out all of my social media, as I said earlier at the beginning of the video, and of course don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell for notifications for next week's video, where we're going to go over sort of like Kieran's event, where we should have Lana and Raina's Lost chapter coming very soon as well. So stay tuned and keep on watching for those bits as well, and then stay tuned next week where I'll be clearing obviously all the things from the previous week as well for next week's Chaos Roundup. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys all again soon. Bye bye.